This organization has been around for 50 years and in fact was started by several neighborhood families who needed to find a solution to take care of their children who needed special services and special care. So they banded together and formed an organization, and ultimately that's where we are today. They first involved Pat by asking him if he would like to be the legal counsel for this organization. That was back in 1972. So really, as we sit here today at the event, Pat's been involved with this organization in some form or fashion for just over 50 years, which is really remarkable because, you know, out of the founding families, we don't really have any of the original people present tonight except for Pat.
Well, I first met Pat approximately 18 years ago when I became a new member on the board of directors. And he was the president at that time.
I started at South Chicago Parents and Friends in 1982 in the position as a recreation aide. So I met Pat through fundraising activities, and because our recreation programs happened more in the evening time, I would see Pat and several other board members coming in for board meetings.
When I first started on the board about 10 years ago, that was my very first introduction to Pat. My opening conversations with him were very simple, as Pat is very direct with everything he does, as probably everybody else will say. But it was just an introduction, and he welcomed me, and quite honestly, it was one of the warmest welcomes I've ever had.
You know, I have early memories of Pat's involvement in this organization, and only because my parents were involved and I was brought along to events and activities that were taking place at the time, and I can recall Pat being there. My recollection is quite fuzzy because I was very young, and in fact when Pat joined this organization I was a mere 4 years old.
I've known Pat Reynolds for a little over 19 years. Some of my fondest memories of Pat was always a gentleman that was very much in thought, quiet, yet effective. Pat didn't need to say a lot to be heard.
He had a very quiet demeanor about himself. However, he was very firm in the things that he believed in.
He's got a little bit of a twinkle in his eye. He's going to be very open to what you are trying to get accomplished at the meeting, but at the same time, you know that he's going to give you some sage advice at the end of the day.
Always looking at the finances, because Pat is the one board member who knows where we came from. Always talking about, at one point we only had $50 in the bank and we didn't know how we were going to make payroll. And now when they see hundreds of $1,000s in the bank and financial statements reflecting that, he can see that we've come a long way.
I have a lot of admiration and respect for Pat to have given 50 years of commitment to this organization, to the people in the community, and just on this board. I believe that is such an unselfish way of one to share oneself with others.
Every one of those founding families, just amazed and incredibly grateful to know that Pat not only helped out when initially asked, but continued to serve this organization without hesitation over the course of 50 years. It's just remarkable, really.
So Pat, I would just like to thank you for your 50 years of service to South Chicago Parents and Friends. I'd also like to thank your family members for allowing you to be shared with us over these past 50 years, and hope for 50 more. We thank you for your service and appreciate it.
I think the history of this organization travels with Pat, so I don't think you can ever measure just how important it's been for him to be an advisor, a backbone, a carer, a person who's been able to shuffle things together to make them work. He's a good guy. And when you look at good guys, there should be a picture of Pat somewhere.
Pat, on behalf of all of the families that you have touched over the last 50 years of being on the board for South Chicago Parents and Friends, I extend to you a heartfelt thank you for your guidance, your dedication, and your leadership.